It's me, Amanda, and I'm here today to talk about the books that I read in May. So, May was a very good reading month for me. I'm laughing because it's like, honestly, I felt like I didn't read as much as I have in other months, but I think I went through spurts of reading a lot, and then I wouldn't read much for a few days, but then I'd read a lot, and so I managed out pretty well overall. It's actually my most pages read so far this year. I tied for the amount of books. I read 8 books, 2,816 pages, and I listened to 26.4 hours of audio as well. And that should actually be accurate this time. All right, so awesome. Now let's go ahead and talk about the actual books. First thing I read and finished was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is actually young adult, but maybe I'll roll with you. This is not immature young adult. This is this has a heavy topic. The story is enveloped in war. There's a war going on between two gods. And the gods kind of look like regular people, but they do have some powers. They do have some magic to them. And there is a little bit of magic in this world in general, but a lot of it feels more grounded in reality. And it takes time-wise, it's kind of like World War One is a similar vibe, so to speak, of what this is taking place with. So the technology is similar, but it does have magical aspects to it. So the main two characters in here are Iris and Roman, and they are two rivals, and they work at the same newspaper, and they're competing for columnist position. And Iris is she's going through a time of it because her brother's missing. She doesn't know what happened to him, and she has been writing letters to her brother through her typewriter, but what she doesn't know is that Roman is receiving these letters, and then they start corresponding back and forth, not knowing who the other is. Well, he knows, but she doesn't. This is great. It's a wonderful love story. So romantic, highly romantic, and just it honestly is the war aspect is really important. And this book doesn't shy away from things. It really goes into it and goes with it. Now, this is a duology. So shortly after that, I read Ruthless Vows, which is the second book. I gave Divine Rivals 5 stars, and then Ruthless Vows, which is the conclusion, I gave 4.5 stars. This is also fantastic. And this one, it's a bittersweet ending. More on the sweet than the bitter, in my opinion. But, oh, so good. It's a really good book. And there's something that happens at the end of the first book that goes into this one, and I thought it was going to be annoying, but it ended up working out. I liked the way it worked out. It was good. Definitely a solid duology. Yeah, it's young adult. It's a really, really good young adult. There also is technically an on-page sex scene, even though it's in the first book, even though it's young adult. I just want to give a heads up. It is not graphic in any way, shape, or form, but it's a good thing to know. Then, for my 12 and 12 challenge, I read Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Now, this was suggested by my good friend Andrea. Anyway, I'm killing it on this challenge so far. So, this book, the main character is a gentleman named Darrow, and he lives in a society that is very much a class-based society based on color, colors. They call the different people different colors, basically. The top is golds, and reds are basically the bottom, and he is a red, and he works in a mine. And they're being fed this information that what they're working on is going to help everybody else in the future to be able to colonize Mars. But that is not actually the truth at all. I'm not going to go into it. I think the less is more. I had no idea what this is really about when I got into it. And I think sometimes it's nice to just discover a book. But basically, Darrow ends up in a plot to try to overthrow the government. That's all you really need to know. And it involves... He ends up in a plot to overthrow the government by being made into a gold. And basically, this book ends up being like Hunger Games. It's very Hunger Games-esque. Like, it's a very similar idea with a society. But the difference is, in this book, there's like 12 factions based off of like the Greek/Roman gods. And I think it's the Greek ones. But the difference is that these kids in this, it's a school that they're in, but they have to work together as teams, like in their different factions. And that's the big difference with this book versus like the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games, it's everyone for themselves. And yeah, they team up a little bit here and there, but whatever. But not for very long, you know. This book, the whole idea is teamwork behind it, which was really interesting. And so Darrow learns how basically to become a leader. And oh man, this book, I really enjoyed it. Now, I'll be real, for the first half to 2/3, I can't remember exactly, I just kind of was slogging through, like, not a huge slog, but I wasn't super into it. But there is an event that happens a little bit later in the book that really changed things for me. I'll just be vague and say it does involve a failure with Darrow and him learning things. And he's a very smart guy. And it's fun to see not just problem solving in terms of like figuring out, like piecing things, like how to do things, but there's another level of being clever when it comes to like figuring out how to lead people. And I thought that was so interesting about this book. I loved it. Super enjoyable. 5 stars. Highly recommend it. I haven't... This is actually a pretty decently long series. I think the last book's coming out soonish. I'm never going to catch up in time for that, but I do plan on eventually continuing the series. Yeah, and I should mention that one would be considered sci-fi and also like young adult technically, but it's pretty intense. It's like, it's a Hunger Games level of intense. Next, I read Scandal in Spring by Lisa Kleypas. This is not technically the last book in the Wallflower series. There's like a Christmas one as well, but like the last for the 4 seasons, I guess you could say. Now, this one is finally Daisy's romance with a guy named Matthew Swift. And basically, Daisy is very, like, head in the clouds, kind of a dreamer. She's the last wallflower who hasn't gotten married. And her dad, like, gives her an ultimatum that she has to get married by a certain time or he's just gonna, like, get her married to somebody at this point. Not looking good for Daisy, especially because she loves to read books and she has a very romantic mind. And, like, to have her just be stuck with some random guy, not the best. Her dad wants to set her up specifically with this guy, Matthew, who works for him. And he plans on having Matthew take over his company because he said his sons, none of his sons, he doesn't want any of his sons to be taking over. So, all right. And then Matthew they don't like him because he's very serious. Like, she and her sister don't really like him because he's very, very serious. But turns out, you know, Matthew's really not that bad of a guy. So that's the basic premise of this one. It's a historical romance novel, adult, and I thought it was really cute. I really liked the romance in this one. I think this one, very surprisingly, is actually my favorite of the series. I'm really surprised that I would pick this one as my favorite because I never hear anybody talking about it. But I loved it, and I gave it 4 stars. It's super cute. I liked the steamy bits in it. And yeah, I think I appreciate a good stoic man. Not a man who's like a jerk. I want to clarify. I don't like alpha jerks. But a man who's just kind of stoic, I feel something for that, you know? Then next I read Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Now, I actually listened to this as an audiobook, but I do have the Owl Crate edition of it because I couldn't resist. And I took a gamble because I didn't know if I would actually like it, you know? Now, Laini Taylor also wrote Daughter of Smoke and Bone, which is a trilogy. I don't know what the actual trilogy is supposed to be called, but Daughter of Smoke and Bone is the first book. I love that trilogy. It's really good. So I was excited to try this out, and I'd heard really good things. So I was like, we're just gonna go for it. We're not gonna worry about, like, I'm going for it. Now, this one centers around a character named Laszlo Strange. Strange is a surname given to orphans, which he is, of unknown origin. And he is a librarian, and he is obsessed with this mystical city called Weep. Now, that's not the actual name of the city. Nobody knows what the real name of the city is because there was a goddess who, quote unquote, ate the name and made everything disappear. And it's based on magic. So Laszlo has been obsessed with the city forever, and then he finally gets an opportunity to go there. I'm going to keep it kind of vague because this is an interesting one to watch unfold and find out, like, what's going on with it. And oh, I really, really enjoyed it. Laszlo is such a lovely character. He is such a sweetie pie, and he's like such a beautiful dreamer, and it's so nice to have that kind of a male character be in the forefront, like just a sweet dreamer instead of like again. I appreciate that over like jerk characters. He's absolutely lovely. I Now, Laini Taylor, something to know is that her writing is very slow and melodic, and it's absolutely lovely. It worked really well as an audiobook while I was working on other things, but I'm just noting that and telling you because I wouldn't want somebody to get into this thinking that this book is going to be like super exciting. It's not, but it is absolutely lovely and still very enjoyable. I really like the narrator for the audiobook. He does a really great job with the voices, and he's lovely to listen to. So I really enjoyed it. 4.5 stars. Obviously a good reading month for me, right? Next, I read A Fragile Enchantment by Allison Saft. Now, this one is young adult, kind of like Regency romance, but magical. So there's magic again, and it's basically the romance between a seamstress. She does, more specifically, she does magical embroidery, which is really cool. I liked that aspect a lot. And the prince of the kingdom. Now, and of course, he's like a jerk and she's nice. So, you've got that general aspect going for it. This one was fine. It's not really great, not to be a jerk. I got this one because it's absolutely gorgeous. Like, I got the Owl Crate edition because I'd heard like mixed things, and it's fine. This isn't a bad book. I give it 3.5 stars. But it's not fantastic or anything. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's not that amazing of a book, unfortunately. Where it fails is like certain pieces and whatnot just don't fit that great in this book. Like, at one point, she's like, I forget exactly the setup, but she's communicating with the prince and she's making an outfit for his wedding. And it's an arranged marriage. And she's like trying to make the outfit, and like, he was a jerk to her earlier, and then she just like unloads at him and like yells at him a lot and is really harsh. And she's considered, like, I guess you would say her people are considered, I think they're meant to be like Scottish or Irish, kind of an idea where they're below the royal, like, her class of people are considered very much below the royalty. It has like that similar kind of a feel. And yet, like, it's hard to imagine her like actually, like, who would actually be that sassy? It's so weird. And the book is very insistent that she's super kind, but I didn't really feel that kindness coming through a whole lot. It's stuff like that. The little pieces are not super polished, but as a whole, it is a cute, like, romance, and I like the general vibes of this book a whole lot. I wouldn't recommend it, like, unless you're somebody who's really into, again, Regency romance with some magic. And, you know, if that sounds really intriguing to you, then go for it. But I don't recommend it for everybody, you know? Okay. I still have 2 more books. All right. My last physical book is Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. I don't know if it's Cara or Kara. But anyway, this one is yet another romance. This one's adult contemporary romance. Basic concept of this one is that we have, oh god, what are these people's names? This basically revolves around a young woman named Eve. And Eve has a one-night stand and unfortunately gets pregnant from it. She decides she wants to keep the baby. And it is basically her journey with being pregnant and whatnot. But the romance is between her and her best friend's older brother. And they are good friends, so it is very much a friends to lovers romance. The one thing to know is that baby daddy is in her life. He has a girlfriend. He didn't cheat on the girlfriend. They had broken up during the time that they slept together, so just clarification. But yeah, this one I thought was honestly really solid romance. It took me a bit to get into it because I didn't really like Eve for a good chunk of the book, but she's a little self-centered, but she figures it out, and she becomes a much better person later on in the book, and it's really good. She has like a good revelation in it, and it makes sense. I really enjoyed that, and I liked the way, I liked the whole relationship with Ethan, the baby daddy. Now, I'm glad that the romance wasn't with him, but I liked the way they interacted and whatnot. It was entertaining. Like, it worked. It worked. And Shep. Oh my god. Well, I'll get into Shep in a second. And also, her relationship with her best friend was really good and well done. I like really strong female friendships like we see in here. Her best friend is dealing with infertility, so, like, you can imagine the feeling of her friend gets accidentally pregnant when she's been desperately trying to get pregnant. And that's mostly what centers around the whole thing with Eve being kind of self-centered. It changes. It gets better. But anyway, that relationship was really great. And then there's Shep. Willa, her best friend's older brother. And I loved him so much. He is such a good character. And like, he is just such a beautiful, wonderful, kind-hearted person. And it is beautiful to see. And he is so thoughtful, incredibly thoughtful. The gestures he has throughout the book, beautiful. And he's definitely not your typical romance interest, like love interest. He is a nerd. Like, he likes to play video games. Like, I love it. It's just so different. And he also, but yeah, he's just such a sweetie. I loved him so much. And like, it is steamy too. And like, it was good. It was good. So I would recommend this one for sure. I gave it 4.25 stars, 4.25. So definitely recommend it if you like contemporary romance. And last but not least, oh my god, that was so many books. I read In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. It's the second book in the Lovelight Farms series. So the first one was I forget what it's called, but it's the Christmas one. And that one is A Friends to Lovers. So this one is kind of like, it's basically, this one is another Eve. No, they call her Evie, or Evelyn throughout the book, and a guy named Beckett. So Beckett, he runs the like farming, a lot of the farming portion of Lovelight Farms. And Evie is a famous influencer. And they had a one night stand on a like some kind of business conference in Maine. And he was really hung up on her, but she left without like giving him any info or anything. And then they meet up in the first book because Evie is doing a contest involving the farm. She didn't know he worked there. So that's the basic concept of it. And then Evie is frustrated with her partnership she has with another, like, I don't know, media company? I don't know what you'd call them. But she's getting frustrated. She needs a break, so she decides to go to Lovelight Farms. She goes to that town for her break, and of course Beckett's there, and you know, that's the basic premise. Is he's very, very bitter and hurt about what she did, but of course he softens up to her, and it's a romance between the two of them. Now, this book, there's nothing wrong with this book. I think it's honestly pretty good. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. I'll just throw that out there. But this one didn't really like do it for me, is the best way I have to put it. And I think it's because I feel like when you know the two characters have already slept together, it ruins a lot of the tension. Now, this isn't to say that second chance romance, for example, can't work, because it does. But in this case, it's not even a second chance romance. It's that it was a one night stand. So it's like, I don't know. I just wasn't feeling like the tension because, all right, they've already slept together. I feel like this book I would have been so much more into it had it just been a slightly different concept. Like maybe, I don't know, like maybe it would need, I don't know how I'm trying to explain, but I think if it had been rearranged and they hadn't already slept together, I would have really been a lot more into this book. It's good. The steamy bits are good in it. It is a good romance. I do like the characters. I did enjoy it overall. I just, like I said, I feel like a lot of the tension is the general concept just didn't work for me in this case. And that is finally everything I read in May. My goodness, that took forever. Thank you and congratulations if you made it to the end of this video. If you want, you could give me a sun emoji if you got to the end. You don't have to say anything else because I get it. You don't always know what to say, right? Like, I don't always know what to say. Like, subscribe, etc. I don't know how many people actually watch this, but I hope you're all doing well, and see you next time. See you next month. I don't plan on making any other videos this month, so bye for now.